So today, doing a super simple how-to. It is going to be how to yarn wrap your recurve strings. This string has been through an entire hunting season, so it's done pretty well, holds up well. A little bit of separation from like where the bow hanger constantly presses against it, but I really enjoy doing this on my recurve strings. I don't think it aids too much in silencing, but what it does do is when you have a very waxy string, occasionally you get ticking as the string sticks to the limb as it pulls apart, and then I'm sure on top of that it does silence it a little bit. But so that's what we're going to go over today. Super simple. I have developed, not really developed, but I have come up with a system that seems pretty strong. It works really well. It's a little cumbersome, but I have yet to have anything fail on me, so we're going to go over that today. So all you need to yarn wrap your string, it's pretty simple. Obviously your yarn, this is Patton's 100% wool yarn. I like to have a pair of needle nose. Leatherman's work great, also has the tape measure on the side of it, which is handy because I like to do a 5-inch section and then something to cut your yarn with. So other than that, it's a pretty simple process. I have a string stretcher because I make strings, so that makes life a little easier. You can also just unstring your bow and have the string slightly tensioned on the bow, but basically it's just laying there. Have done it that way before. It's not as easy, but it is doable. If you happen to have a long bow laying around, it works pretty well to string it up on a long bow just because you don't have the string to limb contact. But ultimately it helps to have a little bit of tension and for the side you're working on to be fairly accessible. But other than that, we'll get a better angle for you and we will go from there. Alright, real quick before we change the angle too much here. As far as how long of a piece of yarn to use, I like to go arm straight out and then at least to this offside shoulder, and that seems to usually get me a pretty accurate length. Obviously, the more yarn is more wasteful per se, but at least you won't run out, and that is frustrating. Been there before. So to start the yarn wrap, fairly simple. Break tension on your string, however you're planning on doing it. Untwist the end, or the Flemish twist part just a little bit, so you can basically get a gap in it like that. This is where the needle nose come in. Stick the needle nose up through the string and grab onto your yarn and pull through. So then add just whatever level of tension you're shooting for, which, like I said, you can pretty much do it with any level of tension. It's not necessary, but it helps. So now I have this tag end and the body of the yarn, and you want to kind of saw it back and forth until you're right up against this junction point where the string body becomes the loop. So another point where these needle nose are helpful, through the loop, grab the tag end of the yarn, pull through. So now the yarn is going through the string, up through the loop, and back over itself. So this is the start of the yarn wrap. And now I like to work under the string, over the string, towards me, and I move up just a skosh from where that the yarn's actually going through the string. And then from here, it is just a matter of simply wrapping the yarn around the string. I don't worry about that tag end. I just cover it right over and then do this. I like a 5-inch section of yarn wrap. Usually I have an inch or two not touching the limb, but I will get back with you guys once I get to the other end. Okay, so we're at the bottom end of the yarn wrap now. This is probably 4 3/4 inches. The back serving section of this probably takes up anywhere from 1/4 inch up to 1/2 inch, depending on how much you back serve. I will say, if the end of the yarn wrap ends in the Flemish twist section of the string, which is where the tighter twists are, this next part can be a little tricky. and you can break the yarn when you end up pulling it through, so just keep that in mind and just be careful. If you're in the normal body of the string, there's not as much tension and it tends to be a little easier, so keep that in mind. Generally, the next step we're going to do is back serving. So if you've made a string before, this piece will be much easier. So you want to come up and around and above the string. And now we were working this way, wrapping around this way. Oop, 1 second. So we were working this way, wrapping around this, up and over this way. Now we're going to work towards the yarn wrap, wrapping the same direction up and over the string. And this is how you back serve too. So the same thing for center serving. So we got a couple loops in, we have a tag end, the loop we were wrapping around, and then our back serving yarn is right here. So if you have a freshly waxed string, it's pretty easy to just let go, and you might lose just a little bit of wrap here, but it won't undo, and you're not going to lose tension, I have found. So this next part, you have to break tension on the string. You have to untwist the string a little bit. And you're going to do the same thing you did up top. Get separation in the two colors or the two bundles. Come through with your needle nose. Grab the end of the yarn and pull through. And then reapply tension to the string. So now what you have is you have this spot where the yarn is not only being pinched by the string to keep it in place, but it's also going to be back served over itself. What I like to do is I like to do that same sawing action I did up top until this tag end butts up against the yarn wrap. So now we have our tag end. We're going to lay across the yarn wrap section, and you are just going to back serve over. Sorry, it's hard for me to find the perfect tension for this string stretcher. And you're just going to back serve over the yarn, and what you'll see is the yarn from the bottom will unravel and it covers up over the yarn on the end of the yarn wrap. And this is the same principle when you back serve a string. Alright, sit here. Clearly need to. Sorry. Alright, that's better. Like I said, the string stretcher helps. It's still not perfect. This is totally doable on the bow. It's just a little easier with a little tension. So this is where you have to be really careful. And honestly, at this point, less tension on the string is a little better, because the string itself underneath will be a little looser. So what you got to do, once you've reached the end of your back serve, is you just pull on the tag end, and your loop will come right up to the end of the yarn wrap. I'll add that tension back on the string stretcher. And then what I like to do, so you have your tag end, I like to put my fingers right up against the end of the yarn wrap, and I'll push that up, pull tension until the yarn breaks. And usually it ends up breaking very flush. So this may not seem like the tightest junction as far as the back serve goes, but you got to remember it's also going through the string. So at the end you have a very secure method that looks very clean. So see if I can get it to focus. That is a nicely yarn wrapped string end. So that's pretty much the process. I apologize, it was kind of hard to film, a little hard to get everything in view perfectly. One of these days I might get somebody to try to film for me, that'll help. But yeah, that is your yarn wrap right there. I'll throw in a couple of clips of various versions of it I've done. I hope that didn't make it sound way too complicated, because it's really simple. Just cumbersome, like I said. So hopefully this helps somebody, and hope you enjoy the yarn wrap string. Till next time.